Priest, but he's running the Illidari Inquisitors in the main deck, same as last week, because I think he had a little bit more respect for Priest, but he at least has that tertiary in there with a more consistent card draw, second copy, double jump philosophy. So there's a chance he switches onto that, but I believe in their first match, Surrender and TIZS, Surrender was the only one switching after game 1.
Well, to get things rolling for Surrender in this matchup in particular, even though I do think Surrender is looking to be a pretty big underdog in this first game before he can switch to his secondary anti-Demon Hunter build, you're just trying to get as much stats on the board as early as possible, and Mankrik does a great job of that. The Octobot as well, a way to cheapen your hand, get all of these cards out, and a 0-mana passage, even as early as like turn 3 or 4, 0-mana Secret Passage is just good. You can just dump a couple of cards off of that. So it's looking like a reasonable start for Surrender.
It is, but for TIZS, this is the juice that you need to in matchups like that. Skull on the left, and he hit the Illidari Studies, so he can play that as early as turn 4, given that the deck, or at least Surrender's board, doesn't require him to use any of his outcast cards prior. And yeah, it's no pressure on the other side. He doesn't need to pay attention to the Octobot just yet. However, he can choose to proc it if he thinks that Surrender has, say, Guardian Og Merchant. You can say that I don't want to give you initiative, but I don't think it's likely. And it's not like Og Merchant on 3 is a very good play, so I agree with the face attack.
Did you have any interest in going Arcanist Coin Eyebeam because it would have moved into the outcast position before the card was drawn?
That's a thing to consider. Obviously, gives Surrender denies Surrender a lot of the mana discounts, but at the cost of your early Skull from 2 ways, because you both spend the coin and the discount from Illidari Studies, I think it's a bit too expensive.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's the 2-turn difference, right? Turn 4 Skull is just absolutely bananas.
So Surrender is just going about the curve as usual. Would really want a cheap Battlecry to pair with both the Octobot and the Field Contact, but for now, I could see maybe just the One Maker coming down.
And this is an interesting conundrum, though, right? Because One Maker, ideally, you want to save to go with the Field Contact, and playing second Octobot, it's risky playing both onto the board when neither one is being frenzied, but the ability to do 4 damage AoE in one sweep without the double activation of Immolation Aura is actually quite difficult for Demon Hunter. It has to be a very specific combo of cards, like the Talented Arcanist and Moarg, and then the Immolation Aura or the Fellscream Blast. So I feel like it's reasonably safe to just play out the Octobot here.
Yeah, I could get behind that as well. Just dump many cards. At that point, you're kind of saying that you don't even need the discounts, because if you play both the One Maker and the Octobot, there's only 4 cards that potentially get discounted. So aside from this being hard for TIZS to kill without proccing the Frenzy, I think the main thing for Surrender is he just wants stats on board, even if it's a 1-4. Just try and get TIZS while he is having a bit of a slow start. But this is the opposite of slow now. The Skull goes off, gets some decent discounts, and he can kill one of the Octobots without proccing the Frenzy.
Do you aim at the Octobots? I guess you do. I'm kind of afraid of the Mankrik is the main thing here, but that Sigil of Silence that he picks up is actually pretty insane, because again, the Octobot can't attack into the Scorpid to Frenzy. It has poison. It will just die. And so it's, unless he finds a way to activate it himself, given there's no Penflingers in the deck anymore, that's kind of hard. It looks like it's just going to be silenced away. That was brutal.
Yep, and TIZS has plenty of health to work with still, because he got that additional healing from the Chaos Strike Surrender, going to pull the trigger on his Secret Passage. None of that was particularly good against Sigil of Silence. Okay, Kazakus.
Yeah, he missed out on the Org Merchant, which was really what you were looking for there, I think, to get the immediate activation.
True, but it's still close because Neophyte plus Wicked Staff gives him a strong board presence, means he doesn't have to get rid of the Octobot at this turn. And it means that TIZS would have a harder time clearing that board presence. In the end, Surrender still just goes for the Kazakus, though pretty consistent overall.
These are not what you're looking for. No stealth, no Divine Shield would be the absolute dream. Like,
yeah.
I guess Poisonous is what you're looking for? Like, I just don't even see how Lifesteal does that much. You're not taking damage here, are you?
I think Poisonous does literally nothing, though. There's just no minions that you want to kill. Lifesteal might, in some cases, have Surrender reach a break point to survive certain combinations that TIZS has, but overall, very unlikely to be relevant. So, first glance, I am looking at some combination of Immolation Aura and one of the buffers. We could see the Moarg come down for the full clear, or with the Arcanist. Oh, just leaving it up is TIZS. Fair play. He has quite a lot of health to work with, and if he just holds on to everything with the Fell Scream Blast, he could get even more healing. Surrender did take copy on the Golem. I didn't quite catch if it was the lifesteal, but it's certainly good board presence, and he can also just brain freeze and ignore the 4/4 if he likes. The problem is he has to know by this point that TIZS is going for having saved a lot of clear potential, but if he doesn't go on board now, I don't feel like Surrender has much chance of winning through burst.
Yeah, the problem is that if you go for like the board route of getting the Golem online, that's all your threats that have just been laid bare onto the board, and you have to imagine they have some kind of a clear at this point.
Surrender's going to take the risk, and it looks like this is pretty much the exact outcome that TIZS wanted. I think he held on to the Immolation and Fell Scream last turn because he wanted to see what the Golems were. If they did have stealth on them, then he would very much wish he had held on to Immolation Aura. So looking at the previous turn from TIZS, it all makes sense, and now he can go for a full clear with... we could see just Arcanist with Immolation Aura, because I'm pretty sure he doesn't want to waste the discount on the Moarg that he banked with the Raging Fell Screamer.
Yeah, you kind of want to get that on the Illidari if anything else, like the Moarg, it's not even necessary. I feel like you're just going to get there with the 8/8 smacking face every turn. True.
Although that play of Arcanist plus Immolation does float some mana for TIZS, we could see him commit Fell Scream Blast just to heal up a little bit, but it doesn't quite fit with... you can't Fell Scream first without ruining the Immolation because of the Arcanist.
Yeah, I think this does make the most sense. You're not going to be starved for healing anytime soon with Moarg in hand. Second Eldraki.
That's a sick top deck for Surrender. You were talking about how that was all his threats after playing the Golem. Very real point, but he gets probably the best individual top deck here with the Jandis.
Ooh, okay. Raz as well. I kind of feel like you're maybe supposed to make Raz the illusion one, just because having a big taunt in the way after they've just used an Immolation Aura does feel quite valuable. And, you know, Raz is nice, but 1 damage a turn is not that much. It's not winning you the game in Rogue.
I agree. It's also just, if you add that 1 damage to its attack, it's pretty much just the same as Aldor Truthseeker. Surrender doesn't really have many ways of generating spell damage in this deck, so I would also put the illusion on the Ras. TIZS will have to go through the taunt one way or another if he wants to chip away at Surrender's face, so I like keeping the health on Aldor. If we look at TIZZ's possible responses, though, obviously the Inquisitor is what he wants to do, but this board warrants some respect for sure. And he gets a very clean removal with just the Moarg. Fell Scream doesn't matter which one had the illusion, and he is back up to full.
It's going to be very, very difficult for Surrender to pull this one back. Like, we're looking at, obviously, getting some kind of an Alex Straza plus Tenwu combo, but even by that metric, both the Octobots have now been used in the early game, so his ability to go for some kind of an OTK is massively diminished.
It just doesn't look like it's going to get there. And the thing is, when Rogue doesn't have room in the list for backstab anymore, TIZS is very comfortable just leaving his Moarg on board. If Surrender wants to commit a Wicked Stab to that, it's not like he gets any additional value off of the Moarg's effect. So Surrender just going to go digging here. I think he wants to find Prize Plunderers to go with this turn, but I don't even know if they'll have enough charge on them to one-shot either of TIZZ's minions, let alone give Surrender enough board presence to take TIZZ back all the way down from 30 again.
Oh, drawing so many cards. Can even go with One Thief Brain Freeze, or, you know, if you want the 3-2 on board Foxy Fraud Brain Freeze, but even with doubling the spell damage into clearing off one of these minions completely, it just gets cleaned up so easily, it feels like.
With TIZZ's current hand, there's not much mass removal, is Surrender's one saving grace here. Although, what you mentioned a while ago is TIZZ doesn't even necessarily need the OTK to get there. Could be a real thing. We could just see the Illidari Inquisitor head straight to the dome.
As interesting as Glide is, when your opponent has more than 4 cards in hand, doesn't quite feel worth it when you have an Inquisitor and a Skull ready to come down this turn.
This foregoes the Inquisitor, though, I'd imagine, because he's prioritizing getting rid of the field contact, and you don't necessarily want to sink your 8/8 into that. I'm not entirely sure if I agree with this play, though, because he could have still killed the field contact with hero power and trade the Moarg, and then the Inquisitor could have rushed into some other minion. Oh, sorry, you could have hit the 3-1, and then the Inquisitor goes in, and then the Moarg goes somewhere else. You don't go face, but it clears up the skull for the next turn.
No, I agree. It feels a lot like we didn't play a 6-mana 8/8 on this turn that can rush and go face all at once. Like, I'm kind of unconvinced here, because again, it will still be good in the coming turns, but I feel realistically, as little threats as Rogue has, that's about as small of a board as you're going to face for the rest of the game. Like, they're going to be able to piece together something over the next few turns. And it just cleared up Skull as well.
That could come back to bite TIZZ. We can't call it just yet, though, because Surrender is still struggling to put together some board presence. I'm actually unsure what in particular he was looking for off of the passage, because a lot of the remaining cards are expensive or things you want to save to go with Alexstrasza, which is Tenwu. But maybe he was okay with just playing Mankrik out for mana just to get something durable on board.
You usually are. Like, even if you get it off like you said, the secret passage is more than good enough in my experience. And now we have to be looking at the Inquisitor, right? It's absolutely insane here. You get to rush into the Mankrik with a 2/2 and go face with it as well. It's too good.
So we could see Aldraki face with the Inquisitor, so it goes face, and then with its rush, it can hit the Mankrik, the One Thief goes in as well, and then the other One Maker, kills the Cult Neophyte, most likely. Alternatively, he could just hero power and not commit the Warblades, but I'm pretty interested in just getting the equipped mana out of the way.
I too like spending mana.
Don't we all? And for Surrender, the way this panned out, it was actually a very smart thing he did to not bother trading the Aug Merchant, because it would have protected his Neophyte, but in the space of 2 turns, getting 4 damage to face is pretty much the same.
Yeah, I agree. And he's also got one in hand that he can Shadow Step back again anyway. Ooh.
A lot of burn.
Yeah, I guess the game plan now for Surrender is send both the Sinister Strikes, the Wicked Stabs face, and then draw your Tenwu and probably Shadow Step it and keep it in hand, because then you have the secondary burst of an extra 16 from Alexstrasza with a 0-mana Tenwu.
It could be that, but it's hard to fit in with all of the mana, because I think his main priority is trying to draw as much as possible right now.
Really? It's so good to get 16 extra burst damage, even with both the Octobots gone.
I mean, the Shadow Step maybe would have been informed by Surrender's first couple draws. Could he afford, for example, to get the Tenwu? I'm not necessarily sure if he's even going to commit the Wicked Stabs this turn, because the counter spell looks like it might potentially save him big time.
That's a very good point.
If you go one Wicked Stab here and this board survives, then it does set up for an Alex lethal, but you have to kind of assume that either this board is getting cleared or TIZS is just going to kill you.
Well, there's the counterspell dealt with. I-Beam probably just comes down first to clear off something while it can.
Neophyte might be very clutch for Surrender here. TIZS does still get the Neophyte down, but that 1 mana discount is not enough to overtake the 3 mana discount from the Skull.
Yeah, that's right. It's one of the sneaky ways that Hearthstone kind of does just have negative values, even if you can't actually play anything for less than 0 mana. And I guess with the second Shadow Step in deck for Surrender, he still has the capability of that big burst potential online. But it's looking pretty far away at this point.
The thing is, Surrender's seen a lot of combo pieces here. He's seen second Skull as well, but he's seen one of the discounts. So if he can kind of parse together the chances that TIZS actually has exactly Il'gynoth with the second Fell Scream plus one of the buffers, then there is a world where he doesn't use the Alex for healing. I'm not sure, though, how you can get the odds of that. It's so difficult, because it's Alex's turn. I just don't know what it points at.
It has to go to TIZS' face. You have to go aggressive here. Like, they need such a specific hand. Oh, this is so sick.
He is very brave about it. And it might pay off. Kind of use the spells at this point, but it's all right.
Yeah, these are completely useless. You're just hoping for the 10 we draw next turn, and if Alex draws a Styx, you have a billion damage. It's not even close.
I think Surrender did this play knowing that TIZS used both I-Beams and he used one Fell Scream, so in terms of combo activation, it is actually just the Fell Scream Blast now.
Yeah. Alex draws are going down, though.
Just a little off of lethal there at the end, right?
It's just such a sick draw for TIZS. Like, if he'd drawn the, Il'gynoth there, for example, as one of the cards in his deck, he was kind of just dead. Surrender would have actually pieced together the damage to get there. This rogue really always gets closer than you think it will, but finally here, I think we might have reached the point of no return for Surrender, unless he can get a miracle off of Primordial Studies.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it. I think it might have to be a miracle off of one Thief even at this point.
Maybe, yeah.
But TIZS has saved the double jumps to proc potential counter spells. Surrender's last card in deck is Tenwu, so I'm not really seeing that. Okay, Fireball.
Oh.
What he hopes for now is just Il'gynoth being at the bottom.
If he
it's a very real possibility.
He has lethal here, right? Oh wait, does he just have lethal?
Wait, does he?
With the Thalmos?
Fireball?
No way! What?
How did the mana fit?
Hello?
Amazing. I wasn't even counting.
I thought he had to do it next turn. I didn't think he had mana, honestly. I didn't think Surrender believed it himself for a moment there, but perfect viable, perfect 2 mana spell damage card. I guess there were a couple with the Geomancer as well, but I can't believe it. How did he get there?
I mean, well, with the Studies and Thalnos, that's 2 mana, and then Fireball is 4 mana, so 6. Yeah, 2 Wicked Stabs. It is actually just the perfect 10. So it had to be a cheap spell damage minion into exactly Fireball for Surrender to have a chance in this, and it just panned out. That's pretty insane. We saw TIZS deliberately try to get healing as much as he could on the previous turn with the Eldraki Warblades and just survive and wait for a couple more turns to draw Fell Scream / Il'gynoth. But Surrender with the Wicked Stabs just got there, and it was really all off the back of the offensive Alex.
Yeah, it was a very, very nice sequence from the at the end for Surrender there. Loved the way he played that out. And again, even if he hadn't got the perfect Thalnos at the end there, with 2 swings of the dagger plus the Wicked Stab Fireball combo, he would have been able to get lethal. I think the real questions here have to be what was happening on the other side, because there were some pretty questionable choices as to how TIZS was sequencing out his removal and his threats, because the I-Beam being used for 6 damage with the Moarg and therefore 6 healing on a 1 health minion seems like massive overkill, when clearly his one big concern is, can he just be bursted out of the game at that point? And I think if he'd gone a little bit more aggressive with the Illidari Inquisitors instead, he may possibly have been able to just push for an earlier lethal whilst also hoarding that healing for a more opportune moment.
That's fair. I think the real turn that I did just question from TIZS was the one where we were talking about Inquisitor could have come down earlier to kill the field contact. Honestly, though, I didn't think it would matter given that TIZS still did get the skull, but towards the end there, it goes to show you cannot underestimate Rogue's burst, even if it happens over 2 turns, the Alexstrasza and the Wicked Stabs. Even if they don't necessarily have Tenwu, they're always threatening it, and that's why TIZS put so much priority on getting rid of the Alex on that turn.
And if things were looking good for Surrender before, they're looking fantastic now, because his primary deck honestly isn't even really supposed to beat this matchup. It's supposed to be okay, I think, and especially when you're playing like that, you have a reasonable chance. But this secondary deck that I would have to imagine he is going to switch over to, as he did the first time they faced off this weekend, yesterday, it's going to be a dominant matchup at that point. You've got the Cult Neophytes to make all the spells more expensive. We saw how devastating it nearly was in this matchup, or at the very least was annoying. The Grandmasters and the Watch Post as well. It's so many just annoying cards for TIZS to try and get through that is going to make it so awkward to actually get any of the card draw rolling.
And because of the way TIZS played last game, where he did place a lot of priority on the Illidari Inquisitors, you kind of think that TIZS probably sticks to primary deck, as he did yesterday. But I would even venture to wonder if there's some argument for switching to his tertiary, which just has more card draw and cuts the 8/8s altogether, because Il'gynoth is something that Rogue cannot play around. Sometimes Rogue can deal with an 8/8 though.
Even as early as now, I question the play there from TIZS, because is going Illidari Studies on 1 there actually the correct play? Or is it better to save it for turn 2, given that you're unlikely to have anything to play on turn 2, especially as you're not actually running Spectral Sight in the deck, so you don't have a top deck for that? Because now it's just locked in his hand for the next 2 or 3 turns.
Yeah, I agree. I almost never play Studies on 1 unless, say, I already know I'm going to have a skull on the left, and I can have that discount banked for that long.
Yeah.
For TIZS, though, certainly not ideal, but it is a good thing at least that he found an answer for the Octobot.
This is just looking strong for Surrender. This starting hand is ridiculous. Like, if he'd got that activation with the Octobot, I'd be calling it right now, because he'd be drawing a million cards, finding Mancrick's wife as well. He's still going to be drawing a lot, obviously, and putting a lot of pressure on the board.
It's brutal, the opening curve, and he has Ogremantcer for next turn. So with that in hand, I think Surrender can take a mediocre field contact here. Just don't give TIZS room to breathe.
Do you
potentially even Shadow Step the Prize Plunderer.
I mean, I'm kind of looking at Shadow Stepping the Mancrick. Like, you play it, you trade, step Mancrick, play it again. You only draw 1 card. I mean, maybe you're just supposed to step it and dagger, or again, the Prize Plunderer does draw you more cards. But the Enraged Mancrick is so difficult for Demon Hunter to deal with.
That is a very good point, but I'm worried about Surrender's card draw. I feel that's the only thing lacking with his hand if he does go in with the field contact now. So if he is going to play a contact turn, I would prefer it to go along with the Prize Plunderer. But we could also just see Mancrick on his own without a field contact, which looks like Surrender is going to choose that option. Curves into Ogremantcer next turn and gives him a bigger chance at drawing more than 2 cards after turn 5.
Yeah, the field contact part I was definitely not sure on, but stepping Mancrick, it's just the best card to Shadow Step. It's so deceptive, because just an extra 3/10 that smacks face on the turn it comes out, especially with field contact in hand. The quality of your deck has just been improved so drastically.
Fits in with Surrender's game plan of drawing maximum amount after turn 5 as well. So at the cost of not getting face damage right now, he gives himself a way better chance at an explosive turn 6, turn 7. And not pushing face damage right now is not a big deal, because TIZS has already shown he has the Warglaves.
Ogremantcer comes down. He has just seen the... Not definitely a Moarg has been copied, because there are Illidari Inquisitors in the deck of the philosophy, but it's a reasonable assumption, because if there's both, obviously Moarg takes priority. So it's scary to play the Ogremantcer out when there's likely to be pretty good clear, but the rest of the hand is just not ready yet. You need to give it time for the mana to grow first.
And pretty good is still not that scary here, I would say.
Yeah.
The Ogremancer is checked by the Illidari Inquisitor best in TIZZ's deck, and I would wager that's the reason TIZZ is still staying on his primary, even though the tertiary has more card draw. It's so he has that option to deal with Surrender's Ogremancers without playing a spell. So for Surrender, even though the board got cleared up, it's a lot of resources used from TIZZ, and he can just move along with the card draw game plan that he invested in by stepping Mankirk.
Too quiet.
Yeah, I like this ordering. There was like a small consideration to go prize plunder on your own field contact first, just to get it without it killing it, but you're likely to draw something that you can play alongside the rest of this, even if it's just a brain freeze, as we see there.
You could potentially see Far Watch Post as well. In the end, I think card draw is more important, as Surrender demonstrates here. Oh, wow, that is nuts. Absolute best draw off of that one prize plunder. TIZZ has the second Immolation Aura to answer this board, but Surrender is completely refilled now that he has the secret passage as well. He is not running out of gas. Whoa.
That's
Surrender
the
just...
though.
Did you see Surrender's reaction? He was like, please, no, not the skull. It was the skull.
But the thing is, the fact that he had to forego the Immolation Aura as well means that he just gets to keep drawing for those Mancrics. Those coming down. With Moarg already gone, Arcanist already gone, one Aura already gone, it's really likely that one of them gets to stick around if they're drawn.
Yeah, it's a big deal, but actually Surrender's board space starts to become an issue as well, because trying to draw with all of his minion effects means that sometimes the 3/10 doesn't even have space to come down. Kazakus, though, gives him a nice way to spend mana while still maintaining one board space. Although if you take Kazakus, you kind of want the 1/1, right?
Right.
You can try to hit the minion buffs.
That's what I was thinking. +1/+1 here is really nice, because even if it doesn't necessarily make your board more survivable, it definitely pushes a lot more attack on this turn, which is a big deal. You'll want to get the threats rolling.
I think Surrender here with the passage is trying to diversify his assets, as TJ would put it. Try to put threats on board that don't just get swept up by an Immolation Aura. That was the flaw with what we were thinking about, even though it was very tempting to push more damage. He was just looking for a way to stick what he currently has. Stepping Neophyte is one way to go about that.
And another Neophyte as well? Why not? How much does TIZZ's hand even cost now? Is that 3 more on this turn?
Yeah, I think so. 5 mana for Immolation Aura? Yikes.
Oy, oy, oy. I mean, it's still good. You're going to do it, but you're going to be very sad about it.
9 mana? This is hilarious. And this is what Surrender's secondary is built to do. He already had the Neophytes in the beginning, but coupled with the Ogremancer, you can see why that tilts the matchup even more in favor of Rogue. Now it's probably just the Fell Screamer, and he could start with the Scorpid.
You're never starting with Moarg and then Raging Fell Screamer, are you? It's a 3/5 on board.
I grow impatient.
I feel like
Probably too
Moarg is
scary.
still valuable in hand.
Yeah.
Still. Even discounting the fact that Surrender can abuse its effect with the Brain Freeze, having that guaranteed Moarg in hand with a skull that he is hopefully going to outcast in the near future feels like TIZZ's best game plan here.
Sure.
Probably can't outcast it though with the Scorpion Discover. That is pretty awkward.
Ooh, that's a spicy draw though. With Guardian Org Merchant, Alexstrasza is in hand, so you are cheapening the combo as well. Seems pretty good.
Yes, so with the combo in terms of being able to deal 16 in a turn, you need to get at least 2 discounts. Because Alex plus 10 Mu is already 10, and then you don't have the extra 1 to go for another 8.
That's
but
true,
it's not necessarily that you need to discount them all at once. Like the other Octobot can come down, or you can preemptively shadow step. So I was interested in doing that. Surrender, however, is going to start with the Kazakus here. Takes a 10 drop.
And +4/+4, is that what you're looking at? You've seen both Immolation Auras. It's reasonable to assume. And he cheapens the golem. That's so sick.
So he does go for the Octobot right now, and I thought that looked weird because he started with Kazakus, but it was all part of the plan.
Oh, that's so cool. He gets a big board on this turn and then gets the +4/+4 buff next turn after he's seen all the removal.
Yeah, seen both immolations. Now it's just the Fell Screams he needs to worry about. And he positioned very well for it by having the Divine Shield smack dab in the middle, and then you put the Watch Post pretty far away from Kazakus as well.
Yeah, true.
Okay, so if it's Thalnos +1 Moarg, then the Fell Scream does 4 damage. Still not great. And you really don't want to use the discount on Moarg this turn, but he kind of has to if he wants to outcast the Skull.
Yeah. Okay, he's clearing up almost everything. I really wanted to see the mega board buff there, I've got to be honest, but TIZS, correctly as you're saying, clearing up most of the board and getting the Skull in the position.
Wait, he played an I-Beam this turn, right? Okay, and he... Drew, this order is very sus to me because, okay, he did heal up to full at the end, so not going more plus I-Beam doesn't necessarily matter, but the Chaos Track last felt sketch.
I was wrong anyway. Surrender picked to draw 4 cards. He didn't even go for the buff. And like, even though that was the less cool play, in this instance, it did turn out to absolutely be the better play. So it was a good read.
Look at this now. Like, I think Surrender was kind of... Yeah, he's making this expression because he didn't find his other Octobot, I would have to imagine he's looking for. Or Shadow Step.
I think Octobot's actually already been played. That came down right at the start of the game. So it's all done in terms of the combo. But yeah, Shadow Step is the big one.
And Mankrik, the second one.
Yeah, true. Mankrik,
probably.
the big one.
But in any case, the 10-10 stealth is still very scary, and Surrender has 14 bursts from hand next turn, Alex plus Wicked Stab, or potentially he could go Wicked and one Thief and rip another Fireball for even more burst.
It's just disgusting.
This has no way to interact with the 10-10, so if I'm him, I'm just gonna say, Skull, let me discount the Il'gynoth. If I'm not dead next turn, sometimes I can deal the counter lethal.
Can you get there in any way with Kurtrus? Like, it attacks the stealth, right? But it's just not enough. It's a way to interact with stealth, but it's not good enough.
It's just not gonna die. And he actually takes Philosophy there. I thought that was insta-second Skull, but you did pick up combo pieces, though.
Yeah, I think that's very smart. Like, you want to get the combo rolling, and that is the way you do it, and hope that you just get the good draws, which he got. He has a chance of just delivering the OTK now.
Yeah, he has so much mana banked as well. He did get the 1 mana Il'gynoth, so this looks like lethal to me next turn. So Surrender needs to deal the lethal right now. Okay.
Does he have it? I don't see it quite yet.
I don't see it either. The Alex is too expensive. It needs to come off one Thief. Oh, he's gonna replay this to draw out Mankrik's wife. And that's another 3. And then he needs the rest from one Thief still.
Right. Still not quite lethal. Oh no, wait, he has another one.
Oh,
that was just guaranteed lethal.
Deck. Oh, I thought it was only 1. You're right. The Shadow Step backtrack at the very beginning. Oh, was the final nail in the coffin for TIZS. Surrender. Why would we ever doubt?
We just can't keep up, G. He's just 3 or 4 leagues ahead of whatever we're doing. The Shadow Step on turn 4 to get another Mankrik in, drawing with the 10 mana Golem that he reduced to play it down on 9 to draw cards. And I was thinking buff. He knew stealth to draw to replay it again, getting the perfect lethal. Honestly, I was just left in the dust, as that was one of the sickest series of Hearthstone we've seen from a long time in Surrender. That is how you play some Rogue.
Absolutely. Very, very impressive to have the foresight to invest in the 3/10s at the very beginning. And even though it was pretty unlucky to not hit them until after the first 10-10 came down, they managed to still get the lethal done. Surrender was not baited in trying to shoehorn himself into an Alexstrasza combo. That is an option that Rogue can go for if your hand kind of directs that as a more convenient outcome for you. But Surrender identified that there are different ways to go about it while spending less mana, and never once did he give up on board presence as well. Perfectly executed.
It was just so sick, realizing the card draw was so important, perfectly utilizing when to go for the field contact to draw through his deck, realizing that even, again, as alluring as the buffs was, the card draw was the way to go, because he had 6 burst waiting in there, in addition to the Alexstrasza, in addition to the Wicked Stabs. It's just a beautiful demonstration of how to eke out that extra